Alright, welcome contemporary music students to our section on songwriting. We're going to call it Bootstrapping Your Songwriting. It's going to be focused on lyrics, but we'll have a general introduction to some songwriting ideas for the first couple of slides. So we can look at the ways that we approach songwriting is four main ways. Chordally, driven by the beat, whether there's a specific sound that's unique or a melodic hook that's unique, sound driven, or lyrics driven. So songs that really focus on having strong lyric elements, and I suppose a lot of rap songs usually are focused and lyrically driven. Alright, so let's start with the chordal approach, and almost all songs use some type of chord progression. And we can get started by getting our guitar or keyboard out and just noodling. In other words, people like to use nerdling, riffing, strumming, just generally playing with chords on your instrument until you find something that you like. A combination of sounds that maybe are catchy. Now, some say that a good time to do this nerdling part is after you've focused on practicing your scales, or maybe a complicated piece of music where you've really had to use your left brain, a lot of muscle memory to figure things out. And then it's about letting go and let your fingers do the walking, and then finding some sort of a moment where you might grab something unique after doing all that left brain activity. Now, it won't happen every time, but if you go at it often enough, it will happen. You'll come up with something creative, something new and fresh. So in the upcoming lessons, we are going to focus on analysing and understanding chord progressions more, in a detailed way. But for now, just be ready. Have your phone ready to record, or have a blank music sheet or ruled up pages to put down chords. Something to record what you've come up with by using this chordal approach. Once you've got those basic chords down, so keep messing with them. Play the chords, a combination that sound good together. Play them up and down the keyboard or the guitar. Maybe start on a different position. Start on the 4 chord and move to a different progression. Try and break them up into different parts. And here I've given you some ideas where we can use 8 bars of a verse and maybe 8 bars of a chorus. So, and of course, in a chorus, you might want to consider trying going up to the upper part of the melody, go a bit higher. Our second way of approaching songwriting is called beat-driven. That's where, obviously most urban or R&B and rap, and some rock starts with a good driving beat. And you can scour the internet for suitable beats, or even buy them from a budding producer and add them to your desktop audio workstation. Or just, play along with them on your instrument while you're playing them on YouTube. So there's plenty of good beats out there that you can then build chords and melodies and riffs or just rap over. Or you could record your own MIDI drum sounds, or alternatively just hang around with a drummer or just be a drummer. Now, our third approach is the sound-driven. Now, if you do have access to something like an electronic keyboard or a MIDI device, or a guitar with certain effects, play around with them. Use those different effects. Don't be afraid to go a bit spooky or a bit weird. You can use that idea to be the basis of your next musical song, and build the song around the new or spooky or weird sound that you've come up with. Similar to this is where we have a melody or a catchy hook that we wrap our song around. And finally, looking at lyric-driven ideas. Okay, this is just where we write it down. Carry a notebook or your scrapbook with you. Jot down those ideas and thoughts, and at the end of each day, set aside some minutes to review what you've written during the day and see if you can build those ideas into a pattern or a rhyme that you can then turn into a song. Or if you're just that's not your thing, find somebody who does do that and work with them on your instrument. Okay, a little note here on the difference between a poem and a lyric. So poems themselves, of course, fantastic things. It's playing with words. Poems usually have more words, and they can often be intricate plays with the language, and they're often written to be seen on the page. So that's the way they line up and arrange themselves on the page. Whereas, of course, with a lyric, it's got to match itself to the music. And so that we call that where the lyric matches the music. We call that prosody. So let's move on and have a little bit more of an in-depth look at lyrics. It all takes time, folks. Like all good things do, don't expect the perfect song to come out first go. You know, most biographies of the songwriters, we just read about how many hundreds of songs they might have written and turfed out before they got to the one that really made them famous. So give yourself time to experiment and play around, but also set yourself a deadline. Some people like to aim to produce a song a week. So once you've got something, even if you're not happy with, a finished product is something you can then reflect on or even work on or criticize. And, it's always better than nothing. So here's some ideas to get cracking with your songwriting. So let's start with begin the flow. Well, what inspires you? Jot down ideas that inspire you. Let your mind go free. Let your right brain take over. It's got to be something that inspires you that you're writing about, otherwise it's pointless. So keeping a song journal, though, that can be helpful, and that can just be your phone, carrying it with you. If you see something really unusual and a phrase comes to mind, or a little melody, hum it into your phone. As far as lyrics go, it is good to keep a separate lyric journal for writing down your songs as they come. Some people like to keep that journal by their bed and come up when they've got ideas that come to them in the deep of the night, their sleep or dream ideas. And that, when we're sleeping, often our subconscious brain takes over and, comes up with ideas that are quite kooky or strange or just really just make good storylines. So if you're not in the habit of writing songs, you just got to get into those songwriting habits by keeping your journal with you. And one thought is that it can have a cathartic effect. You might be worried that you're going to keep you awake all night. Well, often just by writing down these ideas if they come to you in a dream and you wake up, you can often find that you go back to sleep and have a deeper rest. So finally here we have a thing I've called song walking. It's based around a bit of research I've done from a range of songwriters who use this technique. Just go for a walk up the road. If you've got a bit of an idea already happening, start with, as you step out along your walk, you get into a bit of a gait or a rhythmic gait, and you can come up with maybe some rhymes or some melodic ideas that go with the song walking. So carry your phone with you, of course, to record them as they come along. And the same can also be used, but a little bit trickier, is song cycling, or carrying your phone as you go song swimming and canoeing. It's a little bit trickier, but they're all ideas that you might want to try out, depending on your circumstance. All right, so getting into song writing, our first task really is just we're going to listen. We're going to listen to 10 songs. We're going to see if we can identify the key, the major or minor style of the song, the tempo, the time signature, the structure, the chorus, the pre-chorus, the verse. In other words, take your time and listen and enjoy listening to these songs using an imaginary song analysis form in your head, or actually physically write down on our song analysis sheets 2 or 3 of those so that you can help you complete the requirements for the course. So now we're going to bootstrap our songwriting brain. We're going to use an analogy about computers where they're just a pile of metal and chips. But when you boot them up, send that electric current through them, they become a tool that you can use. So our brain is, before songwriting, can be maybe a bit like that computer, and we're going to use these exercises to boot them into our songwriting process. So our first technique is called finish it off. Just find some of your favourite lyrics or any random lyric on the internet and write down the first 3 lines of the song, or alternatively the first and the third line. Then have a go at using your imagination to finish off the ideas. And where possible, do try and stick to the same rhyming scheme as the original. It's just to get into the habit of using rhymes, and also scansion. That's where we use the same number of syllables so that it flows more smoothly. And the example I've given you here, of course, is Nirvana's Come As You Are. And in the case of the first one, I've given you the last line only. I've just changed the last line. It seems to work. And then just more of a challenge, I've dropped the second and the fourth line, and this time I've come up with a slightly dodgy second line, but it kind of still works. So don't forget using a rhyming dictionary and or a thesaurus. Okay, these are the tools of the trade of songwriters. It's kind of nice to have a good bank of vocabulary words that you can use for songs, but basically we're not all human dictionaries. And we have these tools at our disposal, and most professional songwriters choose to have a printed edition, although there's no harm in just accessing the online dictionaries or thesauruses for coming up with your word banks. It seems a little bit of a cheat, but to be honest, the professional songwriters are using these techniques all the time. So the main point being, we're using these ideas to bootstrap our lyric writing. Now, little hint, if you don't have a word, you've come up with a phrase and it ends with a word and it really just it's not a good word for rhyming, look, have a think about trying to change that last word so that then you can find there is a rhyme that will go with that last word in on the line. In the end, if we're using this technique, make sure that your end product is nothing like the originals. But actually, for the purpose of our course, honestly, we're not publishing our songs. They're not going to be subject to any copyright unless somehow or another, mysteriously, somebody comes along and records and it becomes a gazillion seller. It's just for the purpose of this class. And on that token, looking at assessment. By completing the tasks that we're looked at, we're just working towards completing Module 3 of composing original music, and it's not compulsory to write song lyrics in this course, but we're just helping you if you choose to go that way. Otherwise, work with other people. But if you want to send your lyrics through for me to have a look at, give some feedback, please send them in or take a photo and save your file with your name and email it through to me. And good luck with your songwriting.